You know, a community's identity, it's not just stuff you find in history books, right? It's alive. It's woven into the art, the stories, the songs that kind of define who a group of people really are. Today, we're going to dig into that creative DNA and see how it builds this living, breathing record of a culture. All right, let's get into it. So that really brings us to the big question, doesn't it? How does a culture actually tell its own story? Well, the answer isn't just one thing. You find it in a community's creative spirit. You know, in the things people make, the stories they pass down, the heroes they look up to. It's a story that's literally being written and painted and sung into existence, like all the time.
All right, so here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to walk through 5 key ideas. We'll start with why heritage is a living, breathing thing. Then we'll look at the unwritten archives and the tangible soul of a culture. After that, we'll talk about artists as the record keepers and wrap up with how all of this makes history feel, well, human.
Okay, first up, a community's living story. Let's really get into the why behind all this. I mean, we're talking about heritage as something that's active, it's dynamic. It's definitely not just a dusty old collection of facts.
And this quote right here, it just nails it. Heritage is not just something to read about, it is something to be felt, heard, and experienced. It's not just data points on a page, it's an experience. Think about it. History really comes alive when you can actually listen to the music from that time or see the raw emotion that an artist poured into a painting. It stops being abstract and becomes something real, something we can connect with.
Okay, so if heritage is this big experience, then how in the world does it get preserved and passed down? Well, we're going to start by looking beyond the written word. We're diving into the powerful, kind of invisible ways a culture shares what it believes in, its unwritten archives.
I mean, before we had printing presses everywhere, this was it. This was the library of a community. Oral tradition, we're talking myths, folk tales, stories told around a fire. That's how societies passed on their most important stuff. It's how you learned your values, your history, your entire worldview. These stories weren't just entertainment, they were survival guides for a culture.
And a huge part of those stories? Heroes. They're such a key way to communicate what a culture is all about. It doesn't really matter if we're talking about a real historical figure, say someone from Texas history, or a legendary hero from myth. At the end of the day, they serve the same purpose. They're like these cultural avatars, right? They represent the virtues, courage, smarts, resilience that a community really, truly values.
All right, let's pivot a little bit. We talked about the spoken word. Now let's get into the stuff we can actually see and touch. This is what we're calling the tangible soul of a community, the actual physical proof of its creative spirit.
So things like music, painting, and sculpture, they're so much more than just pretty things to look at or listen to. They're actual cultural records, set in stone or on canvas or in sound. These are the physical expressions of what a society was thinking and feeling, their ideas, their beliefs, all captured for us to explore ages later.
Yeah, you can really think of every piece of art as a kind of time capsule. A simple folk song might tell you everything you need to know about a period of economic hardship. A giant, impressive sculpture could reveal a nation's political ambitions. A painting can just capture the entire mood of a generation. They give us this incredible direct window straight into the past.
So, this all leads to a really important point. The creators themselves. Who are the people telling these stories and making these things? That's what this next part is all about. The absolutely crucial role of the artist as the community's storyteller, its chronicler.
And this right here is so important. We need to understand the significance of individual writers, musicians, and artists whose work documents, challenges, or defines the heritage of their communities. See, artists aren't just sitting on the sidelines taking notes. No way. They are active participants. Sure, their work can document what's going on, but it can also push back, it can challenge the status quo, or it can totally redefine what a community's heritage even is for the people who come after.
Okay, so we've got the creators, we've got their work. But so what? Why does any of this matter to us, here and now? That's what our last section is about. It's the how. How does all this stuff connect the past to the present and make our shared history feel real and relevant and, human?
When you bring these creative works into the picture, it makes history come alive in 3 really powerful ways. First, it just humanizes it. You go beyond dates and facts, and you start to connect with the actual feelings behind the events. Second, it's great for different kinds of learners. Not everybody learns best from a textbook, right? But a song, a painting, that can be the key that unlocks a really complex idea for someone. And third, it builds this genuine respect and appreciation
for all the different ways that people all over the world tell their own stories.
And really, that's the big takeaway here. The moment you start connecting social studies and history to the creative stuff people actually made, heritage stops being this boring, static thing you have to memorize for a test. It becomes a living, breathing experience, something you can feel and hear and see for yourself.
So, I'm going to leave you with this to chew on. Every one of us, right now, we're creating the artifacts of today that are going to become the heritage of tomorrow. So when you look at our music, our art, our stories, what story is it all going to tell about us?